Hmm. A lovely question. I think the place I always look is within first, and I think we have to do our own personal healing to, as I said before, move beyond the woundedness of the past, to understand, how we've been conditioned into certain ways of being, and do the work of letting go of anything that inhibits us from our full and joyful and whole self-expression. Um, I personally believe that we are innately whole, but we cover that over with all kinds of false beliefs and things that we just get into as we grow and move along the path. But I do think that there's an incredible opportunity to become free and to be more and more fully who we truly are, and then to offer that whole being in service to others, in relationship, in creative businesses, in collaboration, in bringing new works in the world. So I would say start within, clear things up, and then start giving yourself fully to life.
I just want to say thank you so much. I'm so glad that you were with us today. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I absolutely love the way that your mind works, the way that you have processed things. I love being in the presence of like-minded people, and tonight was truly an honor. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Leanne, and thanks to all of you. I have enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Isaac, for asking me to meet your friends.
Yeah, thank you for accepting.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I love you.
Yeah, I love you, Reverend Kathy. Thank you so much.
I love you too. I hope we meet in the flesh soon.
Yes. All right.
And San Diego.
Yeah, I concur with that. Anyone else that would like to continue talking a little bit afterward, can please stick around. I think there's just a couple things I'd like to ask of you guys, but otherwise I want to bid a good evening to Kathy.
Okay. So does that mean I can sign off now?
Yes.
All right. Blessings to all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bless you.
Spiritual path that you're following, certainly being in a group with people that perhaps think the way you do, and you sense that they have something that you might like to get to, whatever level or state of mind that they happen to have. I've been around people who have had just incredible inner peace with themselves. I mean, that was obvious from just being around them, and it was something that it's like, I'd like to know what these people do, to sort of radiate that sense of being okay with themselves, with their lives, and with their higher power as they understand them. And in that sense, I think that definitely associating with other people and understanding how they do whatever it is that they do and how they got to that spiritual place that they are is certainly worth pursuing.
Yeah, I'll give you a really quick example, like why we use the word God. Like, there was a time at which it did not exist, and then there was a time at which it did exist. And in those present moments, that lapse of present moments, what happened in there that all of a sudden gave us the notion of what the name of this being was? And I know there's reason to hear what I'm saying and say, well, I think that's being a little trivial or a little bit off to the side of what's important. But I think not, because I think it could be a symbol of a much greater problem. If I'm understanding this correctly, if we're wrong on the name of the being and we don't mind that, then what's to say we're not wrong on the intention and behavior and everything else? In other words, if I feel like I have an intuition in a chemistry lab and I start mixing things and all of a sudden it blows up, then it turns out that I really didn't have an intuition, but I thought that I did. So what I'm trying to do is challenge everybody and say, wait a second, what do we have? What reason do we have behind us to say, oh yeah, I should trust myself on this one because this logic is sound. This is reasonable. This is why, I'm saying, like, how did we even come up with a name? I'm not in complete disagreement, or maybe not even in a great portion of disagreement. with that name, God, but I'm just questioning, does anybody question this stuff?
Matthew, not that I just want to answer your question by, directing your attention to one particular individual, but I don't know how familiar you are with Joseph Campbell and The Power of Myth, and Hero with 1,000 Faces, but he's a fantastic writer, and really addresses and goes into looking at, I think, what is at the heart of the question, which is how did myths arise in the various cultures going back, into ancient times, and people asking these questions, coming up with the myths that they have, as a tribal society, etc. And literally tracing it out to, modern day religions and up until his death. Excuse me. Putting it all together in a way that he's really asking that question, and spent the majority of his life doing so, studying our myths, studying the similarities, and how they came to be, like what prompted them, and he really gets into like the psyche of societies, and the collective thought process that they have historically, how they came about defining and saying that this is what happened to creation, this is what God is, this is what this is how we explain evil, etc. And instead of saying that this is the truth, it's just a pretty comprehensive view of a bunch of different traditions that are brought together, that reading between the lines and looking at them, you can kind of get a better understanding of how human beings have evolved God as an idea. So if you're not familiar with them, I highly recommend Power of Myth to start.
I know it. I've seen it happen with students. Wonderful way of teaching we had at Sarah Lawrence, where I taught for 38 years. I'd have an individual conference with every one of my students at least once a fortnight for half an hour or so. And there you're talking on about the things that students ought to be reading, and suddenly you hit on something that the student really responds to. You can see the eyes open, the complexion changes, life possibility has opened there. And all you can say to yourself is, I hope this child hangs on to that, They may or may not. But when they do, they've found a life right there in the room with you.
How would you advise somebody to tap that spring of eternal life, that joy that is right there?
Well, we're having experiences all the time, which may, on occasion, render some sense of this, a little intuition of where your joy is. Grab it. No one can tell you what it's going to be. I mean, you've got to learn to recognize your own depths.
Do you ever have this sense when you're following your bliss, as I have at moments, of being helped by hidden hands?
All the time. It's miraculous. I even have a superstition that has grown on me as the result of invisible hands coming all the time. Namely, that if you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while waiting for you. And the life that you ought to be living is the one you're living somehow. And when you can see it, you begin to deal with people who are in the field of your bliss, and they open doors to you. I say follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and doors will open where you didn't know they were going to be.
Do you ever have sympathy for the man who has no invisible means of support?
Who has no invisible means? Yes, he's the one that evokes compassion, the poor chap. And to see him stumbling around when the water of immortal life is right there is really, it evokes one's pity.
Right there? Right there? You believe that?
Yes.
The waters of eternal life?
Right there.
Where?
Wherever you are. If you're following your bliss. I mean, you're having that joy, that refreshment, that life all the time.